It's for April, because April got canceled.
Yeah, I'm sorry I missed last month.
But this whole,
Mixed in between.
when the
We all had-
excuse.
Recording has started. It is 6 o'clock. I will be calling this meeting to order. As you see, we do not have a chair or vice chair. For the CEAC bylaws, since we do not have a chair or vice chair, I'm responsible for calling this meeting to order. Since the meeting is called to order per the bylaws, I am responsible for appointing an acting chair for this meeting based on recommendations from the vice chair. Member Strong, would you accept being chair for this meeting?
Yes,
All
I'll
right.
try.
Okay.
For this meeting, Member Strong will be acting chair, and I will go ahead and do roll call. Chair Watson, unfortunately, I do have to announce he has resigned as chair from CEAC. So moving on to vice chair, or will be now Chair Emmelhans, will be absent for this meeting. Member Strong?
Present.
Member Chisholm?
Present.
Member Johnson has also resigned and has not renewed his position and actually has been replaced by council effective July. Member Hughes, absent. Member Hart?
Here.
And Member Somerson?
Present.
As we would not have a quorum without Member Somerson, for this meeting you will be acting as a full member. That does make for a quorum, so the meeting is yours.
Okay. Next, we need an approval of the minutes from March.
So moved. Second.
Sorry, who's second?
Second.
Perfect. Just do a vote.
And now we go to a vote. Does everyone approve of the minutes for March 19th?
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Is there anyone here for public forum?
Yes, we do have
Is it-
one signed up. I do not have any that submitted online. Gretchen, you do have 3 minutes for public comment. There will be no feedback. There will be questions if there's any clarifying, but when you're ready, I do have your intersection, and topic is code for everyone. So when you're ready, you may begin.
Okay, well, I just wanted to show up today to follow along and see how the code system works, because a couple of neighbors and I have noticed that, so I'm talking about our property upkeep, specifically having to mow our lawns, keeping our properties, presentable per the code, 6 inches high and all of that. And so we have a home in our neighborhood that is perennially unkempt. The last 3 or 4 or 5 years, it has not been mowed at all. There are trees everywhere, weeds everywhere. The house is completely empty. There's no systems in the house that works. Nobody lives there. And the house is not taken care of. And so we worry about, especially fire danger these days, since there's especially nobody living in the house. And when things dry up, the house can be a fire danger. I've noticed homeless people sitting there. I'm just waiting for somebody to be smoking crack to light it up one night. And what we're all worried about is that a house like this catching fire could take out the whole neighborhood. That's what we're worried about. And we have submitted to Inglewood Fix to have this taken care of or looked at. We don't get any response from Inglewood Fix, just that it's been closed out and nothing happens, nothing changes. And right now the weeds are, sky high and nobody's out there taking care of the property. So I'm trying to understand why 2 years ago, when we all had to make sure that our weeds in the alley were taken care of, and my weeds were 8 inches tall because I had mowed, but they didn't come around until my weeds had grown another 2 inches. So they were 6 inches, but then they were 8 inches when I got my little yellow tag saying, get your weeds down to 6 inches. So I was tagged for a 2-inch difference there. I don't understand why, we don't understand why we get tagged for minor infringements like that, and yet this house sits there year after year after year, and we feel is a fire hazard. And we've sent in our complaints. I don't like that word, complaint, but we've sent them in, and we don't seem to get any response from the city, and we don't get any action, and we don't understand why. So that's why I'm here. Yes.
Roughly, how long ago was it that you submitted your last Angle Fix complaint report or what have you?
I submitted mine last season, towards the end of the summer.
Okay.
And my friend Kat submitted hers, I think it was 2 days ago. And the very next day, she got a response saying this ticket's been closed out. We will take it up at the abatement meeting, was the only thing that was said in there. But there was no real resolve, no real information to her that we could understand, about what might happen here and how we can solve this problem. Yes.
Where is the property located at?
It is
Just
4332 South Lincoln. It's right, there's a church on the corner, and it's the first house south of the church on the east side of the street. Nobody has lived in the house for at least 15 years. It's been empty for that entire time.
Can I ask AJ a question?
Which church is it in?
AJ, the question just in terms of procedure. My impression has been that the city has been pretty responsive to Angle Fix requests. And I'm concerned that these folks aren't getting a clear answer, whether they like it or not. They're not getting a clear understanding of what the heck is going on. Can that be addressed, even if it's bad news? Can they get a clear explanation of what's going on?
I'll have to go in and see where that was routed, because I know it didn't directly come to us. I'm aware of the property. So that's something we can talk about offline, because it is an active case.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure what department it originally got routed to.
The timing on this is interesting, because we've had this discussion here in the last couple meetings about almost this exact example of what's fair to the neighbors who are cutting their weeds, who are taking care of their property. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I guess my first wish is that the neighbors get a clear explanation of what the heck's going on, what's the status, and then maybe us at another point in time talk about what recourse we could recommend to the city. I mean, is it a change in code? If we're a citizens group and we want to advise the city, this is a nagging issue in my mind. This is not the first time it's come up, and I'm just wondering if Englewood doesn't have to look at it in a new light. If it's an absentee landlord, which it might be, could the city just take care of it, put a lien on the property? Could they just pay a landscaper to come in and mow it, clean it up, and put a lien on the property? Again, a later discussion, but that would be my question. Okay. So hopefully you'll get a clarification at least.
Yeah.
But understand, you're not the first citizen who has raised this issue, and we're struggling with it ourselves.
Good to know. Yeah. Okay,
That's
thank
gonna
you.
clarify. Question. if it were something like an absent landlord or something that had to do more with a property owner, property manager, do the neighbors need to be, like, are we required to inform the neighbors of what might be considered somebody else's business?
I would like to just address that, just generally when somebody files a complaint, and AJ, correct me if I'm wrong, when they file a complaint on Inglefix, Inglefix should send somebody out to address the problem. And then the person that filed the complaint, do they generally respond to the complaining party about the outcome?
Yes, there are certain restrictions generally in Inglefix, with either criminal justice restrictions that through the court process of what we can or cannot release, that either the property's in the court process or the property has been referred to abatement, or there are limitations on what can be released. But normally there will be some sort of response, especially from code enforcement. There is a response through Inglefix. If it's an email, if it's an automated phone call, if we reach out personally, that there is a response if it's routed through us directly to the residents that they do get an answer.
Right, thank you, just one.
And one other thing is, Member Chisholm is correct that we have been talking about this, and I think the one thing that this board needs to do is look at issues that you might recommend to council. And I think we were gonna, is some of that in the discussion tonight or not necessarily?
Not specifically this, I don't think.
Okay. Is Anglefix data in the numbers, so when we look at the code enforcement statistics for the month or months, I guess I'm sorry, this may not be the right time for that, but I just trying to figure out where the Anglefix data.
Yeah, we can talk about that when we talk about the
Okay,
statistics.
awesome, thank you.
And not to burden you, but at our next meeting, could we put on the agenda just like what the heck happened? So in other words, if Gretchen and neighbors get a clarification or a memo or a note, could we see that at our next meeting? Because that could help educate us in terms of how the process works. And if we were to make any recommendations, we could say, oh, that's really good, or maybe we could modify. You know what I'm saying? It kind of makes reality present itself. But I'm curious, I hope by this time next month, there's at least a clarification on what the situation is.
On this specific case, we'll have to see where it's at in the process. If it is an active investigation, unfortunately, there will be no information released.
Yes.
But I can get together with the city
Great.
attorney's office to see what we can
That'd be
release at
helpful.
that point.
Thank you.
So can I make a general statement? If it is an abatement, and maybe it has to go through a process before it gets to abatement, then the neighbor should see an issue corrected because this situation would be cleaned up. Is that?
If an abatement's done, then yes, they would see some sort of progress. Correct.
Okay.
Am I allowed to ask what an abatement is? What does that mean?
So the city, if the city goes in and does an administrative abatement of the property, depending on what it is, if it is for grass and weeds or trash, the city would actually, we have a contracted company that can go in and clean up certain violations on a property.
Okay. So it has to go to a special abatement meeting, apparently?
Depending on the situation.
Right. Okay.
And
Trying to understand.
I don't know if this is the same, but a few years ago, there was a house on Logan Street that the homeless kept breaking into. It had been vacant for a long time. And the city, I don't know if the city abated it, but they got a hold of the owners also, right? And the owners cleaned it up and sold it eventually. Do you remember that one?
Yes.
That's been a few years ago.
And if you would like to stay around after the meeting, I'd be more than happy to talk with you about process specifically in this after, just because it is an active investigation, not during the meeting.
Okay.
Process specific, I can more than happy to talk to you after about just process in this case specifically.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for listening.
I do not have any other public comment online or in person.
Are we going to code enforcement significant events?
All right, my section. So statistics, I think we had a question.
Yeah, I just was curious. I'm familiar with Anglefix. Obviously, it collects data. It's not clarified necessarily that I could see in terms of how something was received, right? Like, it's not its own column. So I'm just curious, are Anglefix statistics included in this?
So under the how received section, the ones that are under the citizen, those numbers would be pulled from direct phone calls to code enforcement as well as through Anglefix.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else on the statistics? Lots of numbers there for 2 months. The next one, the EMC 1513-1. This is coming to us from the Water and Sewer Board. These are changes.
Utilities. Sorry.
Utilities. Sorry.
It's okay.
For changes that were requested that they made amendments on. So this is just they want to bring to our attention. I did talk to Chair Emmelhans. He has no problem with these moving forward as well. They did request that it goes through CEAC before they move it through council. They're hoping to get it through council already, but since we didn't have a meeting last month, they delayed it. So if we are okay, ideally they wanted a motion for CEAC to approve it. So if you have had a chance to review it, a lot of these are state changes in guidelines. Is that correct?
Yes, it would align our code with state regulations, and that allows our law enforcement some more ability to prosecute matters in our municipal court.
And because it is in Title 15, this is some of the overlap where it is Title 15 where we wouldn't be necessarily primary because they'd be the experts, but it is Title 15 where we do the enforcement portion of it for them. They'd be the actual experts under it. That's why it's coming in front of you as well.
Yes, and this has gone through the Water Sewer Board because it impacts water and the purviews of that committee. And they have at their April meeting, they voted to recommend council approval of this.
Can I ask a question? Just curious, so when you say we enforce it, the code enforcement enforces it, but the someone else is the expert, so they would be the ones who would determine, like, for example, what an offensive water is or those kinds of things, and then it would be indicated to someone that it needed to be addressed through enforcement.
Correct.
Okay.
Now next, Rita, do you have an update for us?
We have to.
I'm sorry,
yeah.
before you do that, would you mind just, so because it is a request to move to recommend that council consider this, would you mind making a motion to see if that is approved or not?
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you. Everybody in favor of the motion,
So someone could make a motion.
make a motion to amend the municipal code cleanup 1531.
I move. Second.
And then you can ask if there's any discussion or any questions.
Is there any discussion or any questions on the subject?
And we can
If
take
none,
the
then-
vote. All in favor?
Okay,
Aye.
aye.
Any opposed?
Second pass.
4 ayes. Thank you.
Thank you. Rita, do you have an update for us?
Let's see, we do have a new board member that was assigned, and they're not coming
for the June meeting?
Correct, it's effective July.
It's effective July? Okay, so in July, we'll have a new member. And so that will, actually, I think the board will be full except for the alternate position will be vacant. There's that. And just one other thing, I did ask at council on Monday night, and I don't really know what the issue is. We should be able to have virtual meetings on a limited basis. And I did ask if this committee could be trained on how to do that, because this room is available has the technology to do that. So I think somebody should be reaching out to you, AJ, I think.
Yes, yeah, and I did talk with city manager as well as city attorney on it. The board actually voted, when we were still over at the PD, that they did not want to have virtual. Most of the board has changed since then. Once we get a new board in place here in a couple months, if that's something they want to change, they're absolutely welcome to. This room is set up for it. So on an ad hoc basis, if we need to do a virtual for a member that's gone, we are able to. I know the issue with this meeting is that the chair for, I believe the council rules, is the chair is not allowed to do virtual.
Right. Well, they could do it, but they couldn't lead the meeting.
Correct, yes.
Now, and that may have changed because there was one board that I sit on actually there still is one board that I sit on that the chairman always attends virtually. So I'm not sure, Deputy City Attorney, did we as the council decide that?
My understanding based off of the council policies is that all boards and commissions are to be in person, that it is the staff that are participating are supposed to be in person, including all members, including the chair or the vice chair. It could be that there is the accommodation request or something along those lines, that where someone might be participating remotely still. Also, in limited circumstances, electronic participation has been permitted.
Right, and I mean, I know, I personally would like all meetings to be in person. And so, but I know that we are allowing council members to attend virtually. This is my policy and I don't miss too often, but if I'm absent for any reason, I'm not going to attend virtually. But where it ends up being a problem is like if there would not have been a quorum tonight, that's where the problem comes from, so.
But is this, decisions of this committee that important that we have to, and that frequently that we don't have a quorum? That we would need to do that?
Well, sometimes, I mean, it depends on the night. I mean, we didn't have a quorum last week.
Yeah.
Or last month, so.
Yeah, and I had planned on coming and then I had a family emergency to make it. So.
Right, and I mean, those
That
things do
happens,
happen.
but-
And I mean, sometimes, but part of the reason we really want to respect everybody's time because people are committed to come to this. And so if there's not a quorum for some reason, and there could be by having a virtual person, but I agree with you, AJ. If it were up to me, everything would be in person and there would be no option for virtual. So.
I agree. I'd say by exception.
Right.
If there's
Right.
extenuating circumstances and we can't get a quorum anyway else, I like it. But I agree, face to face is the way to do it.
Absolutely.
So, I don't know how you put that in writing.
That is the
Yeah.
city attorney's job.
Yeah, and from last meeting, before last meeting, where we didn't actually have a meeting with a quorum was, I believe, April of 2023.
Okay.
So
That's not bad.
Right.
it's been quite a while that we haven't had a quorum, that a meeting wasn't held. So it hasn't been a historical problem with this group.
Right.
So
Just every other April.
And so do we have 7 members, 7 regular members and then 1 alternate generally?
Correct, yeah, full membership is 7+1.
Okay, so actually, 3 people could be absent and we still would have a quorum. Right, so. That's all I have unless you all have any questions for me.
Then should be done.
Anything going on the noise issue?
The noise about, anything for specific?
Well, the motorcycles and the cars starting up again.
And it has, I do believe that there has been a few times, and this has been a while back, with the car and the car rallies that we have called for help, like from Denver and Littleton, or whatever. I think that, have you had a problem so much lately?
Not last weekend, but the weekend before. They started on Thursday and then Sunday they weren't around, but they were
Mostly
they were there. It's motorcycles, definitely.
And I've
Yeah.
got one in my neighborhood, it's cars. So, Cherokee Street, this was 2 weekends ago. And a few neighbors made some phone calls, called the police, and they said, oh, they have a permit. Now, what kind of a permit? I don't know what permit they're talking about. A year ago, we complained to the police and they were very responsive. They came out, they put a roadblock up, they called up the club or whoever it is and said, you gotta knock it off. And they pretty much did knock it off. Well, it started up a couple weeks ago, going down the street, revving their engines, you know. People have babies they're putting to bed at 8 o'clock at night. And the talk on the street was, oh, they got a permit this year. And I said, what kind of permit are you talking about? So, Rita, if you could at least be aware of that, because
I made a note here and I'll bring that up.
I think the police will be hearing some more, because the attitude is, it's just gonna happen, the city's not doing anything, we have to live with the noise.
Yeah, I did go out one night when they were second weekend that they started doing it, and I went on Broadway. And a cop came and parked partway down Broadway.
And it quit.
They all disappeared. All he had to do was come
So I
out
have
and
to
park,
show up.
Yeah.
See, that's,
just to show a
From-
presence.
from what I've heard, I think that is going to be happening more.
Yeah. And that is appreciated when they do that.
Right, but I will bring this up about what you were told about the health permit.
Can I tell you a quick story?
Yeah.
Okay, 2 days ago, no, yesterday, I was over at Depot Park and I was doing some weeding, and about probably 2:30 in the afternoon, I left. I drove over towards Santa Fe. Rita, I'm not making this up. There had to be 12 police cars. 12.
Inglewood or different?
Englewood.
Okay.
And that new apartment complex just west of Depot. I mean, these cars were lined up, and I drove and I thought, what in the world is going on? I don't know what was going on. I sent Othaniel a text and I said, have the Russians landed? What's going on? But here we are, we talk about resources. Now, maybe they needed 12. I don't know. But when we have a problem on our street, we can't get a police car to break away.
Maybe it's not as serious on your street.
And it might be, you're right, I don't know.
Mhm.
But it sure looks weird when you see that many police cars lined up along Dartmouth and
Do you know what day that was?
yesterday.
Oh, yesterday?
And like I said, I sent a text to Othaniel, I said, what the heck's going on? I said, I thought you ought to be aware of it, so now you're aware of it. But
Okay,
I
I'll
can't
find out.
imagine why they needed that many, and back to resource allocation and all the rest, but back to quiet in the neighborhoods, it seems like a police presence would go a long way.
Just a cop car going out. Even if you put a dummy in it and sit it on Broadway,
There you
I
go.
don't care.
They used to do that over at.
Yeah.
Give it a try.
Yeah.
Actually,
I didn't know we even had 12 police cars in Inglewood.
If it wasn't 12, it was 10, it was a
Oh,
lot.
okay,
I mean,
okay.
it was just, you couldn't fit another.
If there was that many, it had to be during a shift change.
Maybe it was the biggest drug bust in history, I don't know, but man, there were a lot of cop cars in one spot.
I have no idea, but I'll see if I can find out.
I'm just
let you know.
curious now.
I guess I forgot to talk about the code enforcement, police department, the cops and boppers.
Oh, no worries, yeah. May 3rd, we did cops and boppers at Centennial Park. We had over 50 kids
Wow.
show up that all got fishing poles and bait and prizes and all that, so it was a really good time. Police department, Parks and Wildlife, Fire Department, Department of Wildlife were all out there, so they had a really good time. Kids had a lot of fun, great experience with that. And then quick staffing updates. Currently we are 3 down for code. We're down a full code officer and our 2 seasonals. All are in background, so within the next 30 days, we're hoping to have all 3 filled.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Is there any updates on the subcommittee?
For the subcommittee, communications is asking, our community engagement plan only went through the spring of 2025. So we can continue that engagement plan, just renew it for 2025, 2026 if we'd like. I know Edie and Rick have been working on that, but that is something that they are asking for an update. If they don't get an update, that will not be included in the Inglewood Magazine. Dave and I did go ahead and approve the summer version of it because they didn't have an updated one, but we just continued on what was last year's, and that's why they are asking for basically an updated.
Thank you. And next we have unfinished business. To continue on from code 1541.
And this is up to you all if you want to continue with the review or table this till next month until you have more members here. And move on to some of the other business. That is up to you as well. We do have a request to move our alternate member to a full member because we do have 2 vacancies with the chair and member Johnson's resignation. City Council has appointed member Somerson as a full member as of July. However, if we would go ahead, if you would like to make a motion to appoint him as a full member starting next month, you guys are able to do that as well. To remove him from alternate to make him a full member, since we do have that vacancy.
Sounds good. I move to go over our code next month and to state in member Somerson.
I second it.
Does he have to abstain?
Do we have a quorum?
Is it because it's its own?
Yes.
I don't think so.
No, okay.
None of those circumstances.
Any discussion?
My only discussion, this ties exactly into what Gretchen was talking about, so maybe next month we could talk about it all together because it's a real live example of what this is all about.
Well, discussion to move, sorry, we have a motion on the table to move member Somerson to a full member.
Correct.
Is the motion on the table, so is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, well, I'm mixing my metaphors.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I think we need to vote
Yes.
on the motion
Yes.
first, and then I
Correct.
just wanted to throw my 2 cents in.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So if there's no discussion, if we could vote, all in favor of moving member Somerson to a full member starting the next meeting. All in
Aye.
favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Welcome.
All right. Next month, I'll redo your name tag for you. All right. Great. We'll table EMC review till next month, correct?
Correct.
All right. All right, neighborhood nights, I believe, is next. This was all the way back from, I believe, November. From member Emmelhans, he requested this be brought up last month to be put on the agenda, that you all wanted to attend neighborhood nights to get communication out there. So I've attached the schedule. If you would still like to do that, sign up for neighborhood nights. I can let the city know, our communications department, that you will be attending. If you need a table, attend whatever you would need to do, or join one of the other groups. But if you would like to work on, if there's one you would like to attend, we want to coordinate that over the next month, and I can get that scheduled with the city as well.
How much flexibility can we have? I mean, part of me says I want to do it, and another part of me says I have no idea what my schedule is going to be this summer, so I hate to make a commitment at this stage of the game. Is it something we could look at like a few weeks in advance and either say yes or no? Like,
So as long as you guys aren't asking for like an actual table or a tent or anything from the city, if you just want to attend on behalf of CEAC, you can just show up that night. If you just send me an email saying, hey, we're going to attend, I can let the city know that you're going to be joining as a member of CEAC, the city booth.
okay.
Otherwise, if you need other accommodations, we need more notice than that.
Well, so if 3 or more members
Correct.
are in attendance, we
Yes.
do need to notice it as a public meeting, which is just something that we need to handle administratively to make sure we're in compliance with Colorado law. But so,
Yes.
yeah, as long as we have that notice.
Yes. So we'll limit it to 2.
And
And
so,
we could literally decide at the last minute. So if I knew Cushing Park was next week, I could decide today that, yeah, I will go to Cushing Park neighborhood nights next week.
Correct, yeah, as long as we limit it to 2 and it's not a public meeting, we have to follow those rules, then yes, it could be a few nights prior that you
Okay.
want to attend, absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
so one question did we talk about this at all, at the last meeting that we had about the neighborhood nights and attending?
It was brought up back in November, that Emmelhans brought it up, that they wanted to possibly attend some. So he asked for it to be on last month's agenda, all the way back in November.
Okay.
So I had a note to include it.
Okay.
That's why it's on the agenda.
So the one thing I would suggest to you all, if only, 1 or 2 of you wanted to go and you had your own table, I guarantee you, if you put a sign up, code enforcement advisory committee, people will come up and talk to you about issues they're having in their neighborhood. And then you all can encourage them to come and share with the committee. I mean, it's just, it would be a great opportunity to reach out, and then everybody wouldn't have to show up every time. So just, that's something to think about. And if we don't make a decision tonight, we're having a meeting in June, correct, AJ?
I believe so, but that's on the list for.
Right,
Yes.
okay. So I'm not forcing you to do it, but I'm just telling you it would be an opportunity.
It's a good idea to get input.
I just don't
Hear from
understand what our decision is. I mean, we're allowed to do it. If we want to do it, then all we have to do is speak up and say we
Well,
want
I
to do it.
think right now, if you were interested in doing it, you probably need to tell AJ, because somebody has to make sure there's a table
Oh, okay.
and a sign
Okay,
and
all
a
right.
place for you. That's the decision you have
Okay.
to make now.
Yeah, if you want the tables and the tents and all that, I need to know ahead of time so the city can get all that together and prepare that. If you just want to show up, then I don't need that to give the city
Put a sign.
that notice.
Put aside.
Yes.
This goes
Oh,
back
I don't
to-
want to be a target. No, thanks.
Okay, no question. This goes back to, I think, number 7 on the agenda around the communications subcommittee and the engagement plan. So I guess my curiosity or question would be, what would be the materials or the messaging that we would, beyond being available to answer questions, which is useful and helpful from a community perspective, but what other things might we want to do that are on that agenda? So I'm trying to understand a little bit more about that subcommittee and sort of, I know that's, I think, Member Emmerholz is, he's the lead on that, it's my understanding.
Yes, and Member Hughes.
From what I remember, I think Edie and Emma Hines was mostly talking about wanting to make sure that people knew about Anglefix and knew like resources of who to call when things are,
Yeah.
and when you're unhappy with your neighbor, or about like tickets that they've received, who do they talk to about like figuring things out, but was mostly about just general information of who you reach out to. At least that was my memory from November, if I'm correct. Anybody else want to add to that?
I think just letting people know that there is a citizens committee, I think that's important, that there is an input available to them.
So could we make a decision next month on which night and which person volunteers? Or should we do that tonight?
Well, it will, if you don't make a decision till next week, it will eliminate opportunities at the first 2 meetings,
Okay.
correct?
And then do we typically meet over the summer? I know the Cushing Park event conflicts with our meeting in July, so.
Well, you can put me down for Cushing Park. I don't know what the date is.
Well, we
but I'll
might need
make
the
it-
quorum, we might need the quorum,
All
so
right.
we'll have to see. I mean, I would suggest that we move forward with trying to staff or attend as many of these as possible. I think both from, I would love to see, and the citizen statistics, right, 77 versus 400 or some 300 officer initiated requests. I would much rather see the citizen number higher and promote Anglefix and the opportunities to come here and to address issues as Gretchen did. So, I mean, I would be happy to attend as many of them as I'm able. I can look at my calendar and then partner with whomever to ensure that we can start coverage with Jason Park on June 4th. So,
Yeah, we have June 4th and June 11th are the next two. Our next CEAC meeting would be June 18th, and then the one after that would be June 25th.
What day of the week are these?
generally Wednesday, it looks like.
Yes.
So it's Wednesday night?
Yeah, June 4th is a Wednesday.
Yeah, it looks like they're all Wednesdays.
I will commit to being there as a representative of CAC, and we can figure out the materials on signage or tables, but I would prefer we have a present shared table. That's fine, that might make sense. But I can commit to being there June 4th and June 11th.
I'll go incognito.
You can always run home.
Anyone else for June 4th or June 11th?
Which parks are they at?
Jason,
June 4th is Jason Park, June 11th is Romans Park.
And these events go from like 6 to 9 or 6 to 8?
I believe they're 4 to 8 is what they're
Oh,
scheduled.
4 to 8.
I don't think I got them back this time.
And they are a weather dependent, and if they're canceled for weather, they are not rescheduled.
so you could look at the weather and then sign up for that one.
I think it's a good idea.
Check the work schedules too.
And what I can do too, if it's something that you will sort of, that CAC is dedicated to attend at least all of them with at least one person, I can let the city know that if we want to do a shared table, if there's another board and commission that's gonna have a table, if we want to join another group that at least one person's gonna attend, one of them, if they can just keep a spot with another group and just do the general signage. And if someone's able to attend, we don't have to give them a name necessarily, but then they can do just the general branding with the other reporting commissions if someone would attend each one. Then we can work that out between yourselves. If someone can't make it, I can send out an email. This is who's set up. Can someone please make sure to cover it as well? So if that's something the group can buy into, I can work with the city on that if that's something you want to do as well.
And I will try to attend most of them that I can, so.
And I do know this year code enforcement is really dedicated. We are trying to get someone to attend all of them. So we will have, I think right now, almost all of them, we do have someone from code enforcement attending, at least part of it, may not be the entire 4 hours, but I do think we have someone signed up to attend at least all.
I think a 4 to 7:30 commitment seems reasonable too, as we think about who might staff water. Maybe it's not that someone, if 2 or 3 of us want to be there, maybe someone tags someone out in the 6 o'clock hour so that we don't also have to be there for 3.5 hours. But
Right.
there are a few of these, July 30th and August 6th, that I'm not available, so I know for sure I cannot commit to those. I can commit to as many as I can, but I know the 4th and the 11th I can't commit to. So I would suggest the shared table puts less pressure on us to make sure there's more than one of us there. It'd be nice if we were with a couple of other people, but we can, I think, make a plan moving forward if anyone else is available on the 4th or 11th, or member Alma Heights might be available as well. So
Right, and I think member Emma Hines will, take the lead on that, and he'll be contacting you all
yes,
to get people there.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
if he
will
just
reach
gives
out.
us a reminder, that would be helpful. I mean, I'll space it out. So. I'll
We'll
do
give
my
you a
best.
straight,
Yeah.
Mike.
and we would work materials out then in terms of if we wanted to have something available, or how does that work as it relates to producing something, or like if we wanted to send people away with the QR code to Angle Fix or something, like what would we work that out, or?
So communications already has a whole bunch of branding and stuff for Angle Fix.
Awesome.
That's already communication does Angle Fix.
So we can tap
we-
into or look at current resources.
Yes, CEAC does have our welcome letter that we just did. So that's something that we can work on getting printed copies out. I'll work with the neighborhood resources as well to see if they can get some of the neighborhood resource bags as well. I don't know how many they have or what their budget is for them, but that's something I can see what other resources they have to bring, and if you can hand those out or what else. But I can work with the city and see what other handouts they have for that.
Okay, thank you.
Member Hart, are we gonna go ahead and table the microchip and tag?
Yes,
Yeah,
No?
yes.
yeah. I just would like to table that until this fall at the earliest.
Perfect.
Are we on committee members' choice?
D, last item, and this was brought up from when the judge was here. You wanted to review, you had some questions about the animal impounds. So that was included in the meeting. If you wanted to table that until next month, when member Emma is back, we can. If you had questions, I forget who brought that forward. But we can either table that, or we can discuss it now. That would be up to you.
We might want to table it until others can look at it. I've got a couple of questions on it. One is, we were discussing the 5 days. It would be good if that specified 5 business days, so people know if they're reading the code, that it is 5 business days, not just 5 days. And also, had a question I didn't remember seeing before. What was it? I know I saw it. On the shelter costs. Oh, it was on the impound animal notice. A city impound fee if they want their dogs back of $265 plus boarding on this form. $265 is a lot of money. And then they have to pay the board, fines and fees. That seems exorbitant to me, and a lot of people wouldn't get their dog back if they had to pay that. That's kind of like.
So that is one of my questions that I would like answered is, in 2024, how many people surrendered their animals?
And is that voluntary surrender or court surrender or just total numbers?
Probably voluntary surrender for the reason that member Hart just, I mean, there's probably other reasons why people would surrender their dogs, but I think it's important for us to know as the committee how many people are surrendering their animals, because we're then not fixing the problem or creating a bigger problem.
So economic hardship.
Right.
Yeah, because that's quite a fee. I don't know what the other cities are charging, but that's a chunk.
That's a lot of dog food.
Yeah,
Do we know?
and you can go down and adopt another dog for less than that. So.
Yeah, but some
it
people
doesn't
love
keep-
their dogs.
I know. But, yeah, it seems high to me. And that's a concern.
Who sets the city impound fee? Is that
The rate and fee schedule. Who's setting the rate and fee schedule, which is approved by council?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you answer.
Oh, sorry, it's in the rate and fee schedule, which is approved by council.
Okay.
And that number, from what I can remember, is based on what the contract is with the shelter, and then based on the number of animals that are actually impounded, as that's the true cost of what it is per animal. So that's not revenue or anything else that the city's making, that's the true cost of what it is to impound animals.
I would want to see those costs. Because I don't think their costs are that high. But it would be interesting to see that. That's on the form. This.
Were we going to talk about the dog impound process also? Was that on the agenda for tonight?
Yes, I believe that's in some section as well.
Okay, so if that's on there, we can do that next time too.
Yeah, that way we've got a full committee and
Yeah.
let everybody have their input.
Any other questions or numbers that I can have this meeting on this?
Does anybody have anything for committee members' choice?
I do. Just a heads up, as we're going through codes, I know weeds are going to be discussed here in a month or so. I've heard from a number of citizens relating to noxious weeds, pollinators, et cetera. All very rational, reasonable questions and concerns. Everybody's behaving themselves. It might be an interesting meeting that's coming up, because what I've challenged them to do is put in writing, if you recommend a code change, tell us what you recommend. Give us something to respond to, rather than just say, we don't like it the way it is. And so I'm hoping that's what we'll see. So again, just be aware. There are a number of people who are putting a lot of time and energy into thinking about it. And I think it's real soon we'll be talking about it in this discussion. So buckle your seatbelts and we'll learn a little bit about what's going on out there.
Just to tack on to that one in particular, and it may be part of the communications subcommittee that I'm just not aware of, sorry, but I'm trying to understand when folks do move into the neighborhood or purchase a home in the neighborhood, what is the process for letting them know that there are some of these rules and responsibilities? I just know as someone who moved here just a few years ago and purchased a home, I was not necessarily aware, but would want to be a good neighbor, right? I would want to do my part. And so I'm trying to figure out again where we might have opportunity or access or tools to be proactive in that space, to sort of not be the enforcers of the enforcement, but also to be the neighbors in the enforcement process, to be able to communicate to folks, including property managers, et cetera, that there's responsibilities that are city obligated, not just being a good neighbor, one's own self-worth about being a good neighbor. And just was curious about that, and that might be able to be part of the weeds conversation as well, as how we can be proactive in that space. I especially was not aware that I needed to mow the back, right? So the front looked great. The back was probably at 8 inches. They grow fast. You can't do every 2 weeks. So I'm aware of it now, but I see a lot of my neighbors who are not.
So Sonia, didn't you
Yeah.
talk about that?
Yes, I belong to like a neighborhood welcoming committee, and we host like yearly parties, we get grants from the city, and part of it is this, I also will pass out welcome bags from the city. And it has all information about Angle Fix, we wrote up a little reminder of code enforcement about, please do your snow removal, please be a good neighbor. And we had a list of things, and it has the schools and different things. And it's just getting enough volunteers to be in this group. And Madeline always has bags for us to pass out to any new rentals or buyers in the neighborhood.
Excellent.
So there is a program,
Thanks.
but it's like a different group. And I guess if somebody's really serious, they can just go on and do Municode. But that's for the really diehard people, but.
We got there, but it took a few
We
minutes.
have been passing out information, but it's just a bunch of volunteers.
Yes.
On the abandoned house issue, I'm seeing more and more, or maybe I'm just noticing them. But like there's a house across from Englewood High School, junior high and high school, that has the backside, it's a little house right on the corner. I don't even know if you can call it a house. The backside of it has been taken off. It's been there for years this way. It's been that way for at least 2 to 3 years. It's not habitable. Why isn't Englewood pushing to get that torn down? Because it seems to me like it would be a hazard. Do you know anything about that? And I'm seeing more and more houses that are obviously abandoned, and that's a concern. And I know we've talked about it before with what the city has done with that, but maybe we need to do something to be a little bit more proactive in making sure they don't look abandoned.
So the city did push forward a vacant and abandoned properties proposed municipal code. I know that went in front of council and it didn't go very far at one point. I don't know if they're relooking at that. That was assigned to the building department and the fire marshal's office. Structures themselves have nothing to do with code enforcement. That is all building, fire marshal, community development department. From my understanding is that the city is not in the place to take properties to demo houses. That's not what is Englewood's view. I think Rita, that's come up in council before.
Right, it has come up, and I don't know that council necessarily has a will to do something about that. But do we know who the owner of that property is?
I know it's changed hands several times. I'm not sure who the current owner is.
I mean, there was a person that lived there that kind of collected junk forever. And then I assume he's gone. Because, I mean, the house has been boarded up. Is it still boarded up?
Yes. The front is boarded up, the back is wide open. Somebody's knocked down the back wall, and that's been that way for quite a while.
Okay.
But it's just kind of like, can't something be done about that? The grass and stuff seems to be not as bad as it could be, but I see other places that it is, the grass and the trees and stuff is just, doesn't look good. And,
It seems like sometimes Englewood bends over backwards to accommodate the problem landlord or the absentee tenant, and then the neighbors pay the price. Their property values, their safety goes down. So I really think Englewood ought to look long and hard at that, because I agree with the neighbors. It's just not fair.
Right.
They're taking care of their property, and somebody out of state is ignoring their property. It's that simple.
Well, and I would be interested to know that house that was on Logan, I don't know, it was down somewhere between Dartmouth and Yale on the west side of the street. I know the neighbors complained a lot, and the police mitigated it, but the police found the owner. And I think maybe that is something this committee could talk about. I mean, I would be careful about doing eminent domain or anything like that, but there could be some recommendations you all could make to council. I don't know what they are, though.
Well, we did ask for examples from other municipalities. Did you ever find anything out about what does Lakewood, Sheridan,
not a good example.
Aurora, and other cities do? I mean, it seems unique to Englewood.
That's only because you live here. I think they all have the
That
same
could be,
problem.
I don't know. I mean, that's a good point, but it just seems like there ought to be a middle ground. I mean,
Well-
from nothing to eminent domain, there must be something in the middle.
Right, whatever the city did get involved, but the owner they found did not live here, but they ended up selling that house.
Yeah, and we've known that property specifically, we've known who the owner was for years. And that case specifically, it was, that property ended up getting sold because the owner ended up needing money. That owner that owner's family still owns at least 4 or 5 other properties in the city. And they get sold as money needs arise. That unfortunately, vacant and abandoned properties have been assigned to, like I said, the fire marshal and the building department. And so we have a process in code enforcement to post the property, abate the weeds and grass on the outside, but the actual structure, the board up of it is not under the purview of code enforcement or this committee because it is under the other departments. So for the abatement of the weeds and grass on that, absolutely, we do have a process and we abate, and that's where the administrative abatements do come into play. And we abate many of them a year, and they're on a rotation that at least once a month on a lot of these that are truly abandoned, forgotten properties, absentee owners. There's very few that we don't know who the owner is. There's a lot that are just absentee, don't care. But those are the ones that we do rotate through and we do abate. Otherwise, yes, there are ones that are boarded up. There are ones that are boarded up that we know the owners, that economic or whatever other reasons, they are gonna stay boarded up. They have plans, but where they're at, either they'll come out once they're get put on notice or summons are issued and they go through the court process, or they come out after they get a notice and take care of it themselves, or whatever the situation is. If we have to abate, whatever the situation is through code enforcement, we do have a process and we'll get the result on the external of the property. However, the structure, that's through building and the fire marshal and how they've decided of what the process is. Unfortunately, I can't speak to of what their process is, and I'm not sure if that's this committee, if that's something that council or city manager wants to assign to this committee. That's outside of my purview, and that's Councilmember Russell. If that's something you want to take on, I'll leave that to you. But.
Sorry. One of the purposes of the abatement, when it's abated, that cost goes to the county and the county reimburses us. Am I correct on that? They did something with the county?
Correct.
Okay, so it's not going to be out of pocket. Part of the reason for that abatement process is not only to get the cost back, but to put more pressure on the property owner to either fix it or get rid of it. And I would think if a property needs to be abated on the weeds and trees and stuff, that we have to be a little bit aggressive with that if it's an abandoned property and somebody's just ignoring, and make sure there are abatements done so that financially that person is going to be thinking more about either getting rid of that property or fixing it up.
And I think here's part of the problem. It ends up being a due process thing because these abatements are done by a hearing officer.
Yeah.
Not by a court.
Yeah.
And if the court did it, the court could, I think in the past, the court has ordered abatements, but they may or may not.
Correct.
And so, I mean, the thing that concerns me most about a lot of the decisions we make here is due process, is people's due process being protected. Because there are people that maybe aren't absentee landlords that could get caught up in that abatement process and then not be able to.
Then they need to communicate with the city.
Right.
And take care of their property or say, okay, I'll absorb that, or tell their situation. But it's not fair to the neighborhood and it's not fair to the citizens or the city for that to be happening. And it seems like it's more and more, and maybe just because I'm noticing it more, but I've seen some places that is obviously abandoned, not livable place, and there's trees and grass and weeds up all over the place. And if there's a way to be more aggressive in situations where someone is just ignoring the city, maybe that's something that needs to happen, and then they communicate with the city and say, hey, I got this and this problem, and then the city can back off on it, or just ask them, get somebody to take care of your property or sell it.
And also, Linda, in Gretchen's example, she and her neighbors are just saying, don't just tell me it's an abatement. What the heck's an abatement? I mean, explain or communicate, this is where we are in the process.
Right.
And so, I mean, that could be on a note card. That doesn't have to be a book. But for the neighbors to know, okay, it's being taken care of, or somebody's looking into it.
And that the city cares.
And the city cares, and it may take longer than we want, but it's not in file 13.
Right, right. I'm very much for protecting people's rights, most definitely. But I also don't think that's fair to the neighborhoods. And
well, I agree.
It's just becoming a problem.
Right.
So.
And I do think that we can talk about process here. And you could recommend a process to city council, and I'm not opposed to that. I totally understand. Because a house that's been abandoned for 15 years, probably nothing's gonna be done with that. So,
Well, then it needs to be, the weeds and the trees need to be cut down and just keep putting that against the property. And
Yeah.
yes, they need a hearing and all of that, but it's gotta be taken care of.
Okay.
So I'd like to see us address that.
so will you make sure Rick gets that information that they would like to address that?
I'm done.
And for the process, do you want to talk specifically about vacant abandoned property?
Yes, I think so.
Or what type of process?
I don't know. We need to look at the process, just how do we do a better job with vacant and abandoned properties on abatement situations.
I mean, here we are, we're learning about that process through a series of meetings. So we're learning about it. But if the neighbors, they're behind us, so they don't know what the word means, let alone the process. So it's another thing to just say, to respond, they go to Angle Fix and they say, here's the problem. And then they get an answer that they understand. It's an abatement. What's an abatement means this. This is where we are in the process. So there could be a simple communication fix just to say, clarify.
Right. It's a different situation with abandoned properties, vacant properties, than if someone's living there. If someone's living there, you can talk to them, hey, what's the problem? Do you need some help to get it fixed up? Or are you just ignoring it and then we can put pressure on you to do it? But that's a different type of property, different type of situation, needs to be handled differently, I would think, and more aggressively.
So do we still have that list of abandoned properties?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's maintained by the building department, so yes.
What's an average abatement cost? Do we know? Like what? I mean, I'm sure they vary wildly, but.
Yeah, so like grass and weed abatement, you're roughly a couple $100 to, we've had abatements in the thousands and tens of thousands, depending on what type of abatement it is.
Can I ask a question? So like if there's a meth house, does the city ever do those abatements at all, or they just condemn the house and block it off?
Yeah, so for meth properties is all controlled by the state. That's all regulated by the state Department of Health. So that would be, it's condemned by the state, and then that notice is sent down to the local agency. So for us, we would get the notification from the state that this property tested positive for meth that needs to be condemned. So that we would go out, either building, fire marshal would go out to that property. The property would be condemned based on the state's order. And then at that point, based on the state requirements for meth remediation, the actual owner of the property is the only one allowed to remediate it, the actual physical owner on the title, or a state licensed remediation company.
Or if somebody offered to buy it and they purchased the property, then they would be given permission to remediate.
Then the new owner would have to follow the state guidelines to hire remediation.
Okay.
Right, yeah.
Sad we have to think about such things.
It is.
Yeah, it is.
Does anyone have any topics for future meetings? Or it seems like we just discussed all of that.
It's a lot.
So the next meeting also is June 18th. June 19th is Juneteenth and a city holiday. So just to bring that to everyone's attention, the 19th is a recognized city holiday. So the meeting can be held since it is the day before. I just wanted to bring that to your attention.
What is the holiday?
The June 19th is Juneteenth, so it is a city holiday. So the recording, unless I stay late and get that up, it won't be put out till the 20th.
And the city is only closed on the holidays.
Great, if there's no other concerns or questions, then I call to adjourn the meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you for all your help.
Good job, so.
Yeah.
You did it.
Horrifying.
You did well. And there's plenty of help